Right, so cameras there.
Yeah.
Right, so we've had a good tour of the whole facilities here at Simfly, and as you can see, it's an absolutely excellent, just so it's just so exact. It's the feelings that you get when you first walk in. It's just so immersive, just this area alone. This guy stood next to me, this handsome fellow, Stewie. But what I want to say is, firstly, thank you so much for inviting us down here. Everybody, not just crew, think what you're doing is absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
But in particular, I do.
Thank you, Simon.
Because it gets the hairs stood up on just seeing this place around, and it's all designed to bring on the youth of today, just to kind of get them familiar with the world of aviation. Doesn't matter what they're doing. It could be baggage, it could be ground staff, it could be catering.
Yeah.
Not just pilots, not just cabin crew, anything to do with aviation. There's thousands, hundreds of thousands of jobs out there for them. And this is going to give them a really good insight of what career pathway they might want to follow. Mm-hmm. So thank you for bringing us down here. What I want to ask you is what your vision is for this amazing facility. Where do you want to be in years to come, and what do you want to provide for the youth? Not just the youth, but you get people in here in the 80s and all that going in the simulator. Yep. But we'll specifically target the youth. What's your vision for the future?
Vision for the future is to see Simfly become a recognised brand within the northeast of England. Purely and simply, Simon, because there's nothing like this in the northeast of England. If you want to train for the airlines, if you want to train for cabin crew, you've got to go off to the airlines, and that might be down south. If you're training as a flight crew for a particular airline, again, you've got to go down south. Mm-hmm. What we haven't got in the northeast of England is a fully immersive experience like what we've tried to create here, that tailors for individuals who have a vocation of getting into different stems of the aviation industry. You mentioned that there was thousands of different jobs in the aviation industry. Yeah. There is. Mm-hmm. And what we've tried to create here is just a little snapshot of the travel agents, of the check-in, of the security, of the cabin crew, of the flight crew, just to bring people in here and experience what it's like at ground floor level, to understand a little bit more about the aviation industry, to put them on that mindset that, yes, the aviation industry, travel and tourism, is something that I'd like to pursue either as higher education, further education, or to actually go into as a job in the future.
Yeah.
And we want people from the northeast to visit Simfly and gain that experience, gain that immersive experience, that they can walk out the door and think, do you know what? The aviation industry is something that I definitely want to have a go at. Even now, given that the aviation industry is very thirsty for new recruits and is recruiting on an unprecedented level post-COVID, we want to be part of that recruitment process and helping those young individuals on their way to a successful career.
Absolutely. And also, I'll cover a little bit later on all the advantages that when you get into the world of aviation, what that can give to you as a person, and what you can expect to see and just witness when you're in the world of aviation. But what I want to ask you, Stewie, as well, is that how difficult is it at the moment to actually, if you did want to pursue a career and become a pilot, what kind of obstacles are in people's way, and what do people actually have to do initially just to get that foot in the door kind of thing?
The foot in the door starts with essentially your private pilot's license. If you're looking for a job as a commercial flight crew, at the pointy end of the aircraft, you've got to show a little bit of self-vision, a little bit of self-progression kind of thing. So it starts with your private pilot's license. So that's at any local flight school, 2 flight schools at Teesside, a couple of flight schools at Newcastle. There's regional flight schools. There's plenty of flight schools to get you started. How I started as a pilot was with my private pilot's license. My first flight was when I was 21, and I still remember it to this day. After your private pilot's license, the route into commercial aviation is a little bit easier than ever it used to be, because, as we both know, the industry now is launching things like pilot scholarship schemes, pilot apprenticeship schemes, whereby it will pay for your training. But you've got to have committed to the first steps of flying, which is your private pilot's license, essentially. And then maybe it's off to a commercial flight school to self-fund your ATPL exams, your airline transport pilot's license exams. And once you've got your airline transport pilot's exams and your PPL, you've got a thing called your frozen ATPL. And that allows you to apply to the aviation industry, who hopefully, if you're successful at the interview process, will take you on with the airline and train you further and type rate you onto a 737, A380, whatever the aircraft operators operate. But PPL is where it starts, private license.
So what was it that got little Stewie interested in aviation in the first place?
When I was a youngster, even when I was 5, 6 years old, I used to.
That wasn't long ago.
That
Really,
wasn't long
was
ago.
it?
It was only a couple of years ago. Yeah. I used to look into the sky and wonder how planes flew. I always had a thirst for knowledge of how planes stayed up there, 50, 60-ton aircraft. How did they stay up there? And even at school, when I was going through my primary school years, in the comprehensive school years, I did projects, self-projects. But as we both know, there was no internet in those days. You had to go to the library. You had to read books. You had to read magazines. You had to ring people and talk about how does the plane fly? How is a wing formed? How does an engine work?
So they never had anything like that?
Oh,
back in our day.
Well, maybe they did, but a little bit more elementary. Yeah,
we've made out of stickle bricks.
Absolutely, yeah, stickle brick, and glued together. So, and back in the day, it was just a thirst for knowledge.
Yeah.
And when I was 21, like I said, my mum and dad bought me my first flight. That was it. I was hooked. I had to fly. So I worked all hours God sends, doing music tuition in schools and private tuition and gigs with bands, because I'm predominantly a musician, as you know. And I put all of that money into obtaining my flying license, my private license, and then it was off to commercial flight school down in Bournemouth, and the rest is history after that. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, listen, this is been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I can hear people.
Dancers
There's
now,
people coming in already. It's never a dull moment here at Simfly. So thank you so much for inviting us down there.
Thanks, Simon.
And it's been an absolute pleasure.
Brilliant. Thanks very much indeed for your time, buddy. Thank you. Thank you so much. Cheers.
Good lad.